Hey good looking, my name is Kanyeswa and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining, and if you are a returning subscriber, what it do, baby? I am excited about today's video. I think it's a really important video, and if there was ever a video on this channel that you should definitely share with your friends, your family, or anyone you know for that matter, it's this video right here. On today's video, I will be sharing with you guys what it takes to become a professional registered psychologist in South Africa. So from matric right up to your registration with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. So if you guys are keen, let's go. So I've got notes in this book over here. If you see me looking down every now and again, I am referring to the notebook. I would also like to make a disclaimer. I am not a licensed professional of any sorts. I just want to put that out there, and this video could get quite lengthy, so please do grab a snack, get comfortable, and enjoy. Okay. Let's start from the beginning. So in order for you to get an admission into a psychology degree, you would have to pass matric with an admission into bachelor's, and also meet the minimum APS that is required. So an APS is an admission point score which the university uses to determine if you actually qualify for the program that you have applied for. So an APS is calculated using the levels that you get in your final result. So you add those levels together, and that's how you get your APS. I think 80% would be a level 7 and so forth. So those levels would get you your APS. Now, an APS may differ from university to university for the same course. So it's not like a set number. It differs from university to university. So you would have to download the university prospectus in order to see what requirements are needed from you. I don't think universities are very strict when it comes to the subjects that are needed, but I do think that you need maths and English. So when it comes to English, if you have English as a home language, they may want you to have a minimum of 50%, and if you have it as a additional language, they may want a minimum of 60%. And when it comes to maths, if you have maths pure, they may want a minimum of 40%, and if you have maths lit, they may want a minimum of 50%. Again, this is all university dependent, so please do go excuse me, through the prospectus just to give yourself an idea of what is expected from you. Now, it takes roughly a minimum of 7 years to become a psychologist in South Africa. So I'm going to be going into, the details, but please be aware that things do differ from university to university, and this is just a skeleton of what you can expect. So in undergrad, you would want to apply to multiple universities, and you would also want to have an option B just in case you don't get accepted for your plan A. So you would apply to multiple universities, and if you are thebomb.com, you would get accepted into multiple universities, and then you would have to choose which university you want to go to. Once you've decided on that, please do decline the offers from the other universities in order to make space for someone that's on the waiting list. All right, so your undergrad, or rather your bachelor's, is a 3-year degree, which would have your elective modules as well as your core modules. So your core modules would be your compulsory modules from the university, and your elective modules would be modules that you get to choose, and those together combined would then make up the necessary modules required for your degree. Elective modules would be modules such as sociology, anthropology, development studies, and philosophy, and the likes. I would advise you to have education as one of your electives and actually pursue it throughout the 3-year degree, especially if it doesn't clash with any of your core modules, and I'll explain why a little bit later. When it comes to your undergrad, it will be mostly theory based, and you would be doing, a broad spectrum of psychology. So you would be getting introduced into the principles and theories within psychology, your founding fathers, quite broad. In your 3rd year, you can expect a core module called research methodologies, which would introduce you into the research component of psychology. Again, it is a theory-based module, but you might be expected to do some calculations because it does have a statistic component. So you would calculate things like your standard deviation, your variance, your mean, median, range, those kind of calculations. It is not difficult once you have grasped the theoretical components and practice these calculations. You'll get through it, you will pass. And yeah, that would be your undergraduate 3 years, and then you get to graduate if of course you've done all the necessary modules within those 3 years. So moving on into honors. You can apply for honors in your 3rd year of psychology, or you can graduate, take a break doing something else, and then come back for your honors. So the minimum average that is required to get into honors is 65%, but having that minimum requirement does not guarantee you a spot within honors, because at honors level, universities mostly take about 50 students. So the competition is very tight, and it is mostly a mark-based allocation. So if you have 65% and someone else has 75% average, they have a better chance of getting in than you do. So it's highly advisable that you work really, really hard in undergrad if you want to pursue an honors within psychology. So again, you would want to apply at multiple universities, and if you do get accepted into multiple universities, you would then please decline offers from other universities in order to make space for someone else. This is honestly you just being indirectly kind. So please do decline offers from other universities once you have made up your mind about where you would want to attend. So at honors level, again, it's quite theoretical. You get your core modules, you get your elective modules. If at the university that you are attending, psychological assessment is not a core module, I would advise you to have it as one of your electives. It's not an easy module, but it is advisable that you have it. Again, this is for another backup. What you can expect at honors level is some group work, as well as presentations, and also oral exams. Again, this differs from university to university, and sometimes if you miss the original test and you have to take the SIC test, the SIC test may be an oral test, so that is something to be aware of. Again, at honors level, you may have a module that requires you to either do some research or write a research proposal, which is basically some sort of prep for masters. So honors would be 1 year again, and you can do honors either part-time or full-time. That also applies to the bachelor's degree. You can do it part-time or full-time. So yeah, that would be honors. Moving on to masters. The application for masters is quite a process. So again, you can apply for masters while you are at honors level, or you can take a break, do something else, and then come back for masters. So the minimum requirements again for masters would be 65%, but in some universities they do take 60%. Now at masters, you can have a 65, you can have a 90. It is, the marks do matter, but there is a whole lot more that goes into the master's application than just your marks. Okay, so at master's level, when we're applying for our masters, you'd need a university application form, a departmental application form, copies of your ID, undergrad transcripts and so forth, and a university specific essay. So some universities may want you to write an autobiographical essay and other universities may give you a case study in which you write an essay based on that. So it's very important for you to be honest in your autobiography. It's very important for you to actually bring yourself into the essay that you're writing. They may also want, they do want 2 to 3 referees that would write a referee report that gets sent directly to the university. So you don't get to see that report. So a referee report is a report that gives the university a better understanding of you as an individual, as well as your suitability for the program that you have applied for. So it's very important for you to be mindful and considerate when choosing a referee. So you need to consider things such as your relationship with the referee, their suitability to be a referee, their understanding of the field of psychology, and more specifically the program that you have applied for, as well as their ability to communicate and whoa, English is just not having me today, or rather is having me. And their ability to communicate and contextualize your ability to, you know, be a student psychologist and one day, you know, perform as a psychologist. I would recommend that you choose someone who knows you from an academic or a professional perspective as opposed to a relative. But again, the choice is completely up to you. You don't want to choose someone that is clueless, but they don't necessarily have to be a professor in psychology. And also remember, you don't get to see the report, so that's another thing that you have to think about. You know, think about someone that would give the best representation of you, you know, and that you trust without actually having to see what they've written. Okay. Please do let your referees know, you know, in time, you know, in advance that, hey, look, I'm applying for masters and I'd like for you to be one of my referees, just to give them a heads up and for them to prepare themselves, you know, not necessarily prepare what they're going to say, but you know, when time for application comes, that it's not like, oh, here's my application, please be one of my referees. Don't do that. Don't do that. Excuse me. So yeah, you would send your application to the university. Again, you would want to apply to multiple universities in order to increase your chances of getting into masters. Yeah, so the university would receive your application, read through your essay, go through other you know, requirements, other guidelines that they use, and then if they like you and your application, they will invite you to selection week, also known as interview week. It is important for you to know that selection week for different universities may fall on the same week, so you know, you would then have to sit down, think about it, and make a choice about which university selections you would want to go to, because it is time, it is money, you know, it is a lot of universities. Again, you don't necessarily know when your slot is going to be, so you can't exactly go to all of them. So you need to think about where you would want to go, where you think you would stand a better chance of getting in. Yeah, so again, this is not what's going to happen, you know, at selection week, but it is some sort of a guideline of what you can expect. So selection week, you would have a one-on-one interview with the selection committee, and they would basically be asking you questions that would need you to relate back to the essay that you've written, or they can ask you something directly from the essay and you guys would actually have to talk about that. So it's very important, again, not to lie in your essay. Just be honest, be truthful, be you. And then you would then move on to a group interview, which is basically a group discussion. You and your fellow applicants would be given a topic to discuss in a certain amount of time. So you would not want to, you know, dominate the conversation, but you also don't want to fade into the background. You want your voice to be heard, you know, but it's not the only voice that should be heard. If you disagree with someone's point of view, this is that opportunity for you to actually speak up and state, you know, why you are of a different reasoning or a different position. But you definitely do not want to attack people. You know, you need to be respectful, you need to be mindful. you want to stand out, but you don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. You can also expect a written task in the form of a psychometric assessment, a literature review, or a case study. Now, this is not something that you can actually prepare for, but at honors level, you would have gotten some sort of understanding of what's expected from you when you get a literature review or when you get a case study. And when it comes to the psychometric assessment, it could be a personality test. So you again want to answer as honestly as possible, because they are going to deduce things, from this test about you that will help them make a choice about who gets into masters and who doesn't. And then you can also expect a little bit of role play, where you would play the role of a counselor and one of the panel members plays the role of a client, or one of the current master's students plays the role of a client. My stomach is growling, but I will finish this video. So in the role play, you again can't prepare for that, because you wouldn't know what problem your clients would be presenting with. So it's a touch and go situation, and at the end of the role play, they might ask you to reflect on the role play and how you feel it went. So you need to be able to be critical of yourself, both positively and negatively. And that would be selection week, and then you would have to wait for a response from the university. Okay, cool. So if you get into masters on your first try, congratulations, you have literally outdone yourself, because it really does take some people 3 or 4 times before they actually get into masters. So if you get into masters on your first try, honestly, you are the bomb.com. And if you again get into multiple universities at master's level, what do you even mean? Please do reject the offers from the other universities in order to make space for someone that is on the waiting list. But I mean, if you get in on the first time, if you get into multiple universities, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's just something about you. Okay, so masters is 2 years, and in some universities it's 3 years. Masters is a full-time course. At no university can you do masters part-time, so you need to be really dedicated to your masters. It is full-time. So when you register for your first year of masters at the university, you would also need to register with the HPCSA as a student psychologist. There are some costs that come with that, so that's something to keep at the back of your mind. In your first year of masters, you will be doing coursework as well as your research, and that's basically M1. In M2, it is your internship year, and if you do not finish your research in M1, you can continue with your research into M2. So at M2, you would need to register with the HPCSA again, this time as an intern psychologist. Again, there are fees involved. So in M2, you do your first 6 months at one accredited institution, and then you rotate in the next 6 months to a different accredited institution. Please look into, the HPCSA website for which institutions are accredited for you to do your internship. Very, very important. So that would be M1, that would be M2, and then we come to our board exams. Okay. So you cannot write board exams if you have not yet completed your research. So you need to complete your research first before you can write board exams. When it comes to board exams, you need to register or apply for board exams 2 months in advance before you actually sit for the board exam. You also have to pay an exam fee. So boards are written on the first Wednesday of every February, June, and October every year. So when it comes to the application, for the February exam, you would need to apply by 31 December. For the June exam, you would need to apply by the 30th of April. And for the October exam, you would need to have applied by the 31st of August. You need a minimum of 70% in order to pass the board exam, and you also need a minimum of 70% in the subsection of ethics within the board exam. Okay, that's how you pass boards. If you fail boards, you can rewrite as many times as you need to within a 2-year time frame. If you write boards and you fail and you want to remark, you can get a remark, but you have to pay for that remark. The results for board exams, you will get them in about 3 weeks or so, and then you are able to then register with the HPCSA as a psychologist. Again, there are fees that need to be paid. So that's how you become a psychologist. So with our clinical psychology students, after you write your boards, you would then be required to do community service. Actually, you are legally required by South African law to do a 12-month community service before you are able to register as an independent practitioner. This is for our clinical psychologists. So yeah, I think I've covered everything. I hope I've covered everything. Now let's just go back a little bit. So in undergrad, you may remember that I said having education as one of your electives is a good idea, because if you don't get into psychology honors, you can look into education honors. Now obviously they would give preference to people that were actually studying education before they consider you, but that is one way of giving yourself an option B. And at honors level, if you don't get into masters, and you have psychological assessment as one of your excuse me and bless me, and I know I'm going to sneeze again. Okay. So with psychological assessments, if you don't get into masters, you can look into doing a psychometry practicum and becoming a psychometrist. So that is something you can actually look into. Yeah, so if you know a psychologist, or if you know someone that's studying psychology, props to them. You really need to give them their props, especially if you know someone who is a psychologist, because psychology, again, 7 years, and that's if you get into everything at the right time. And also, it's not a cheap study, if that makes sense. Right at undergrad, the textbooks are expensive, and then the tuition is expensive, and then you go into honors, and then you get to masters, and then you not only are you paying tuition at masters, you're also paying for these registrations in between, and then you're paying for textbooks. It's a lot. And honestly, I get why, psychologists are a little bit boastful at times. I mean, I would be too if I went to school for 7 years. What? Okay, maybe not boastful, but like I would be proud of myself. I would say, hey, I did that. So yeah, that is what it takes to become a psychologist in South Africa. If I made a mistake, if I've missed something, please feel free to comment in the comment section and give me a heads up, because I do not know everything and I am open to learning. Yeah, shout outs and major thank you to Lebu and Matebo, who helped me sort of put this thing together. And almost everything that I've said is available on the Cognition Co website. So if you missed something, or if you're not clear on something, you can visit their website. I'll leave it in the description box, as well as the HPCSA website. That's a bit tricky to navigate, but I will again put it in the description box. If you enjoyed watching this video, please do give it a massive thumbs up. Comment down below with literally anything. What are you studying? If you're studying psychology, what challenges have you had so far? Are you enjoying it? Let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because your support means so much to me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Toodles!